said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way.
All right, we're going to go ahead and segue into the final portion of the podcast here, talking with our guest. Very excited to bring on Jaleel Canty, former 3-star defensive back, wide receiver standout from Lansing Everett, who was a top 100 DB nationally by the ESPN class of 2013. Originally was committed to Cincinnati. We're going to talk about this a little bit here before he ended up playing in 20 games for Eastern Michigan, followed by 24 games for Ferris State for 2 seasons, where he was first team all GLIAC defensive back, second team all GLIAC linebacker in his final season. And now he's the head varsity coach at his alma mater back at Lansing Everett. Jaleel, how you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Appreciate you guys having me on today.
Absolutely. We've been very excited to finally get a coach on. We, haven't had too many episodes yet, but been looking forward to having a coach, especially one that we've played against. All three of us actually, played against Jaleel. We went to Grand Ledge and Jaleel at Everett. We were in the same conference, so pretty cool that we got to play against each other. And Kory and Jaleel and I got to coach together for 1 year at Grand Ledge, and now Jaleel and I coached against each other. So that's pretty cool that get to have you on and talk with you, man. So the first thing we want to kind of talk with you here, you being a mentor with kids and specifically college football athletes, you had a very unique journey. I know we've talked about it before, but we would love if you're willing to kind of share that you kind of got screwed, man. You had a very interesting trajectory out of high school where you were originally committed to Cincinnati and then the coaching staff left. What was it, like less than a month before you were ready to sign?
Yeah, man. My whole entire recruiting process, man, things are so much different now with social media and camps and things like that. And I kind of sometimes reminisce and wish it was kind of like that back in my day.
Yeah, seriously.
And when my junior year, I had a really, really good junior season. I started to pick up pretty much every MAC offer. Went down to Cincinnati's camped well. For the time, it was Coach Jones, Butch Jones.
Yep.
Camped really well. About a week later, I got the call that I got the offer. During that summer, me being a first-gen college guy, went to a school that didn't have many, top big-time program recruits. I pulled the trigger right away, like a week after getting offered from Cincinnati. I just went ahead and committed. For me, it was really big for me and my family. I actually got offered late by Wisconsin. Many people don't know that. Oh,
yeah. I think I remember you telling me and Kory that.
Yep. So I got offered really late by Coach Belima and his staff over at Wisconsin. But I was still committed to Cincy throughout the season. So I played my entire senior season, was really getting prepared to go to Cincy, and everything was shaping up well. We were 9-0 my senior year. Everything was going good until about December. So in December, Butch Jones took the Tennessee job. So as he took the Tennessee job, me not really knowing what's going on, I'm still contacting him. He's keeping in contact with us. There's a few coaches that are still left back at Cincinnati that don't know if they're leaving or going, and blase. So this is in December, and mind you, December is also was a non-contact period at that time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I could just call coaches all the time. I had to have my coach try and contact them, to figure out what's going on pretty much. So January rolls around, and I think signing day's February 4th or 5th, someday like that.
Yep.
January rolls around. We get back into school. Mid-January, right around my birthday. My birthday is January 17th. Mid-January, I get a call from one of Tuberville's first assistants, and he's like, hey, want to reach out to you. We're reaching out to all our commits, and wanted to da-da-da-da. So I'm asking him questions like, yeah, just wanted to make sure we're all good. Everything's going on. We're all set for signing. And he tells me, well, I don't want to say you don't have an offer, but if I was you, I would be exploring my other options as well.
Oh, man, that's fucked up.
Yep. So at that moment, I tell my coach, and I'm, at that point, I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, what do you mean?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
I have no idea.
Yeah, you're screwed.
And I talked about getting a late Wisconsin offer. In December, Brett Belima also took the job at Arkansas.
Yeah,
Butch Jones and Belima left that same year, at December 2012. So my Wisconsin offer was off the table as well. So God. at that point, all I had was my MAC offers. So when he says that to me about, searching for other things, I talked to my high school coach about it. Like, what should I do? Blase. And other recruits. So at this point, me and a few other recruits are all talking to each other. We're trying to figure out what's going on. The newspapers are reaching out to us.
Yeah, because I'm sure you weren't the only one who got screwed.
Yep, there's articles about it where they're asking multiple recruits. There's like 6 or 7 of us that were in that 2013 recruiting class that didn't get to go. So following that, most of the MAC schools I reached back out to. So Coach Solich at Ohio called me like the next day after that happened. Bowling Green, I was still in contact with. That's somebody I really liked. And then Eastern Michigan was somebody I really liked because Ron English was the head coach there, who was, notorious for being a DB, guy. So that January, mind you, this is mid-January, and I still haven't took my official to Cincy because of this. So I still had, my trips left. So that week, that Wednesday, I left.
Oh, yeah, because at the time you were limited on your number of visits?
Right. I think it was like 3. You could only go with 3
officials. Yeah, you could do 3 officials.
3 official visits. Unlimited unofficial.
Yep. So, mind you, this is mid-January. So when I get the call from Frank Solich, they set up my official for that day. So, so the next day, I'm on a plane. It's like a random Wednesday. I go down, catch a flight down to Southern Ohio to go to Ohio University. Had an awesome official visit. I mean, I loved Ohio U.
What city is that in again?
Athens.
I don't know.
I think it's in Athens, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure either.
It's down there. It's like past Columbus.
Yeah. It's awesome though. It's an awesome city. Like one of those places where the university is the city. So went down.
That's how Cincy is kind of a little bit.
Yep. So went down there on Wednesday for my official. Got 2 weeks left. The next weekend I went on the official to Bowling Green. The next week I went on the official to Eastern Michigan.
Jeez, peace.
Yep. So I had about 2.5 weeks to make a decision on where I wanted to go out of those 3 schools. Ohio U was number 1 on my list. At the time, I was really, really, really close to like a mentor and a figure in my life who had breast cancer. So I was really, really nervous about going all the way down to Ohio. So that was my final straw to make me commit to go to Eastern Michigan.
Okay.
So I ended up at EMU, and I mean, it was good for me. Got to start at nickel as a true freshman, and some games played a lot, some games barely played, but got a lot of experience and enjoyed my time there. And then sophomore year ended kind of rough. We got a new coaching staff, and yeah, that's how my recruiting trail played out.
You got to play in some pretty high-profile games at Eastern too. You played at Florida and at Penn State, right?
Yep.
Michigan
Tell the Florida
State.
story. Tell the Florida story. That's the one that I always remember. You just said wasn't it one of your first starts, and you were on kickoff, and you said you were in the swamp, and you were like, "Holy shit, this is the real deal."
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just hear you look up in the stands, you see all the student section chomping at you. You're sweating. It's just crazy.
Humid as hell, I'm sure.
And then on punt. I mean, it's a highlight out there. I don't want to tell you guys where it's at on YouTube, but they returned the punt return for a touchdown. I'm missing tackles.
Oh,
it gets called back. It gets called back. We punt again. He scores again.
No way. Oh no.
Yep. So that was awesome. I got to play against Michigan State my sophomore year. Got a little bit of burn-in. Got a couple punt returns. Muffed one, of course, in my own home city. Punt. Penn State. I played at Rutgers. Got to play against Rutgers. One of the best experience I had was playing at West Point.
Oh wow, yeah, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yep. We got to play at Army, which was super dope. And yeah, so it was So I had some real good experiences. Got to travel the world, travel America, and be able to do a bunch of different things. So it was awesome.
And then obviously you ended up at Ferris State. Do you mind talking about a little bit how that ended up being your final destination? And if you don't mind me saying, it seems like your two most successful years in college were those 2 seasons you had at Ferris State.
Yeah. And so after my freshman year at Eastern, we got a new coaching staff. Coach Chris Creighton, who's at Eastern right now.
Yep.
And looking back on it, I think it was just more of an immaturity thing from my standpoint. He came in with a different philosophy than what I liked. I was used to, playing a safety corner hybrid. I've always been a bigger guy, sitting around 200 pounds, but I was also a 4'4", 4'3" guy.
Oh, yeah.
So I was always able to be a hybrid player. And when he came in, he after playing the nickel and appearing in almost every game as a true freshman, my sophomore year, he asked me to switch to receiver, which is what I excelled at in high school. I really didn't want to, but at the time, was willing to do it for the team. And, and I think that was one of my biggest mistakes of college. I think staying on defensive side of the ball where I belong, which probably would have been great, and I would have been able to be successful at the Division I level at Eastern Michigan as well. But, things just didn't work out that way. So our differences led to me taking a premature exit. I didn't finish that season my sophomore year, and there was no transfer portal then either.
Yeah, shit.
So it was more or less, once I wasn't on the team anymore, we had a Coach Herb Haygood, who's at Madonna now, old Michigan State receiver, played in the NFL for a while. He was our liaison. So he had all the relationships. So once that happened, he called, Coach Mitchell at Grand Valley. He called Coach Anise at Ferris.
He was probably looking for a D2 spot, so then you didn't have to sit out a year, right? So you could play right away. Yeah.
Yep. And we were looking at a couple D1s. I was looking at a couple schools in the CUSA. A couple, smaller conference, non-P5 schools to try and transfer to, because I actually had some film. I had some pretty good film to be able to, try and get D1 to D1.
Absolutely.
And as I started talking to those schools is when I found out my girl was pregnant. So for me, it made, right away, once I found it out, I was like, nope, I'm staying close to home, go D2, play right away, get this degree, and, do what I need to do. So I went to go on a visit with Grand Valley, had a good visit with Grand Valley, and Ferris's coaches, their coaching staff is just, maybe I'm a little biased because that's where I ended up to play. But they were just different, man. They were just different. They came up to EMU, twice before that season was over while they were still playing. I got to get up there twice. This is within the span of a month. And it was just, the family atmosphere, Coach Anise is down to earth, the way he cuts it to you straight, it was awesome. So I decided I'm going to Ferris, and, one of the best decisions I made.
Yeah, and I know Brett and Kory and I all really want to get into a little bit more with Ferris. We're definitely going to ask you some more questions on Anise and Ferris here. But before we get into that, do you, after, kind of detailing your experience here, because, it was obviously a rocky one. It was not an easy one, but it's pretty cool that now you get to coach kids and mentor kids, because you get to share with them a very personal experience of, fighting through adversity and finishing your career and finishing it very strongly. I mean, those last 2 seasons at Ferris, you had all GLIAC honors both seasons. You went to the D2 playoffs. You were 2017 regional finalist by, was it 1 score? You guys almost made it to this the championship, or won the regional championship. Is there any advice that you kind of impart onto your players, or any younger people that you work with in general when they're taking a look at going to play a college sport, that from your personal experience kind of makes it a little bit easier to say, hey, do this or don't do that? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's awesome being able to have the kids now, because you speak to them, from a place of experience. And just like anything in this world, we talk to them all the time about overcoming adversity and what it means and how much more fulfilling it is when you do. Because you're always going to have something that's hard. You're always going to have some adverse situation that you need to respond to. So it's awesome seeing a lot of kids in the same similar situations I am, with the same goals and aspirations that I had at one point, to be able to share my story and, be able to use the resources that I've gained, things that help me out, to be able to stay in school. I spoke a little earlier about one of my biggest things was my immaturity. So something I had to really do was look in the mirror when I was in college. That was, a big thing, to look in the mirror, to think, what do I need to do to get better? And school was one thing I struggled with. I always give those guys tips on what I did to get better in school and, things like that. So it's real good to have the experience, to be able to share with them. And I think a lot of our guys are starting to learn, and not just from me. I'm surrounded by a coaching staff, who I'm blessed to be around. Most of us are Everett alums, and most of us played college football at various institutions. So we got a lot of knowledge from young guys who's been around the go around to be able to give back to the youth.
Yeah, and just to chime in quick, I mean, you're talking multiple different hardships you faced. I mean, from you having a family, somebody close to your family who was sick. I mean, that happens all the time. People brought up by their grandmothers, aunts, or whatever it might be, or somebody's sick that they want to stay close to.
Yeah, Kory knows about that from a personal perspective too.
Yeah. I was brought up from my grandma, and I had a situation actually in college where I had to come home. I missed like 2 or 3 days of practice to see her in the hospital. So I've been close to that situation, but I mean, your girl getting pregnant, the coaching changes, like stuff that happens in real life that when you're your age, like when you were 16, 17, 18 years old, you have no idea how to handle it. But it's awesome that now you can go to your kids now, and it's as easy as, hey, I've lived this. Hey, this is the best advice I can give you. You don't have to listen to it, but like you've actually lived the situation, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think it makes a man out of you too. And it tends, I mean, the players are going to have a lot more respect seeing what you went through. It's not just you're just blowing steam like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. I mean, there's some mutual respect because you've been there and you've done that. Another thing I wanted to mention too, think about if you're just in high school right now as a senior with that early signing day, you probably would have been signed and ready to go to Cincinnati, and the story would have been completely different. I mean, It's just crazy now.
Yeah, it's crazy looking back. I try not to, man. I try not to.
Yeah, it's easy to do though.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
So going off of that, is there any, if you could, is there anything you would do differently? Do you have any regrets, or do you think that whole experience to change that would change your current position? I mean, again, I don't want to assume anything, but to me, it seems like you're in a great place, man. I from an outside perspective, and I think it seems like you got some awesome things going on.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I really love what's going on right now. And just like we tell our kids all the time, control what you can control. Yep. And there were 2 controllable factors that I controlled that maybe looking back on I might have changed. The one thing that I controlled was me committing early, right after the offer. I think back then, even most of the people who were rated underneath me were still getting bigger offers as the season was progressing and things like that. But I kind of was off the market, and not having the experience to really sell myself and not knowing what that meant. I think that could have brung along some more, bigger offers while I was in high school. So that's one thing that I controlled. And then the second thing is while at Eastern Michigan, when I was removed from the team, it was a conversation. And it was a conversation I had with the head coach. And it went more like it was my suggestion rather than it was his. So I kind of wish I would have been more mature to hear out his perspective. And, I still had 2 years eligibility. I never redshirted, really 3, So I still had years eligibility where I think that maybe if I would have had a different outlook on things, that I could have, easily had another couple successful years and maybe a shot, at the next level if I would have been able to stick around. So the 2 things that I could control, I think, were things I look back on, like maybe, what if.
Yeah, but I don't know about you, but I mean, my experience, is different than yours. My college football experience is not the same, but there's things I look back at too. But then maybe I regret, or I wish it would done differently. But then where I think about where I am now, I'm like, would it change where I'm at? And if you're happy where you're at, it's it's one of those things where it's hard to say, hey, retroactively, would I change those things? But then where would I be at now? Maybe it would be a completely different position, for the better or for the worse, But hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you being willing to share all that story. I know Kory and Brett and I are all appreciative of you being able to come on and talk about your experience there. Kind of takes us then into the next thing that I wanted to talk with you about. Pretty cool story. Brett and Kory might agree with me. You were in the Lansing State Journal the last couple of years here in mid-Michigan, taking over your alma mater as the head varsity football coach at Lansing Everett. Again, I don't want to, to overstep my bounds, but it almost kind of happened, by accident, and it couldn't happen to a more deserving person. Because I do think you're, I've been around a lot of football guys playing and coaching now, and in terms of your knowledge with X's and O's. I mean, I got to coach with you for 1 year, and I we tried when, I coach at Grand Ledge right now. When before you became the head coach, Joe, Brian, and I were trying to get you back. I was like, man, I want Jaleel as our DB's coach, or to do something with us here defensively. We can get him back because I do think you are an invaluable asset here in the Mid-Michigan area as far as a coach. What do you think about that whole situation? I mean, it's kind of crazy, man. I think it's so cool. I think it was such an awesome story. And I love that the LSJ put out some articles about it and kind of spotlighted you in the program, because I thought that was an awesome story. And again, a head coach, I didn't look this up, but I would have to say when you got officially, the interim position, what were you, 24, 25? Had to have been one of the youngest in the state, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, first, I appreciate that, man. Appreciate the compliment. I don't know.
Absolutely.
But, I'm trying to get better every day, as I know we all are.
We all are, yep.
But, I mean, one of those things where it was just, like you said, kind of by accident. And, you never wish for, things that unexpected, bad things to happen. But I stepped into a predicament where I got an opportunity I was going to go in and be the offensive coordinator at Everett. So I went over to do that. So I interviewed. Everything was going well. Got a chance to, meet the late, great Mike Smith, who was the acting athletic director and head coach at the time. So we had some awesome conversations, and, that guy's been coaching forever. He now,
seriously.
Now Holtz Field is named after him, and we lost him this past year. And during that year, Mike had some illness issues right during camp. So we're like, camps on our 2 weeks of camp, we're probably like day 6 or so. It's the second week of camp, the day before the scrimmages. Me and the acting DC at the time get a text that he's in the hospital, not feeling well, and that we'll have to take over. He'll be able to be back in a couple of days. And that couple of days turned into a couple of weeks, which turned into like, holy shit, like we're in the thick
whole
of things.
Season, yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
So I got named the interim that right after that first week, going into our game, and it was a learning experience, to say the least. It was,
I can't even imagine, man. I have anxiety thinking about it.
It was like holy fuck. Like when you talk about stress level being high, just thrown into the fire. A lot of things you don't think about when you're just an assistant, especially how young I am. Minimal years of experience coaching. Period. It was
technically what, your second year total,
right? Yep.
Yeah.
So, you think about just some of the logistics with just some of the miscellaneous things. Making sure we got laundry, making sure all of our uniforms is taken care of, making sure our equipment, making sure our end zone camera, our press box is set up, our concessions, our money, fundraising, parents.
Dude, I love that you're bringing this up, because if you're not Facebook friends with Jaleel shared an awesome picture on Facebook. I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago, where exactly what you're describing. It was like an image of a pyramid. It was like head coaching, what people see. It was the little tiny point at the top. It was like what people don't see. And everything he's describing right now is the big part underneath. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, I mean, going into that year with that experience was invaluable, because it was like, I mean, you have no choice. Like I didn't have a handpicked staff. I didn't have a lot of guys around me. So it was like, if you want it done, you gotta get it done. Got to film games. I was at the JV games filming our own JV games because we didn't have guys
as the head coach.
That's crazy.
That's crazy, dude.
But it was just like getting it done. So it was awesome for me at the time. It was stressful, but looking back on it now, I think that's done crazy things for my confidence as well as my preparedness, going forward. And now that I'm able to get all the guys I want around me, I think our trajectory's headed up, for the team. So it's good, man. It's going good.
The fact that you held that held that together is unbelievable, because my last year coaching, I was an OC for the first time, and I thought that was stressful. And I literally just had to show up and call plays, but just thinking of timeouts and situations and the down and distance, I was like, holy shit, I couldn't imagine being like a head coach. I don't know. Hey, by the way, you're the head coach now.
Yeah.
Here you go. Good luck.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, my Coach Carruthers always used to say, everybody want the keys to the bus, but nobody want to drive it. And
Dude, that's a true statement.
and that year I had to do a lot of driving, a lot of driving, and so it was awesome though. It was awesome.
And Jaleel, if you're listening, Jaleel's a humble guy, so he's not going to say it, and I'm going to say it. The 2019 season, they had their best season at Everett in 5 years. So Jaleel, I got to tell you, man, that was impressive. I mean, their only losses were to Holt, DeWitt, East Lansing, and Sparta, who I think had like a combined 50 wins, because Sparta that year won 9 games. Holt, DeWitt, and East Lansing were the three-way co-champions. DeWitt went to the semifinals. I mean, East Lansing, their only loss that year was to, I think, DeWitt in the playoffs. So, I mean, hats off to you, man. I mean, you're talking about how overwhelming that season was, but you guys had a heck of a season. That was a pretty cool year.
I appreciate that, man. Definitely.
Absolutely. And
he beat us at Grand Ledge.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but
I remember watching him cheer across the field. I remember watching him cheer from across the field, and I was like, "Wow, this sucks."
Yeah, they got us back good this year, though, Kory. So,
I wasn't going to bring up either of those games. So, I was trying to be as unbiased as possible over here. Unfortunately, I'm going to kind of change gears into something a little bit more negative, but I want to ask you about this because I was upset for you guys. And then the subsequent season that would have been your first official year as the varsity head coach in 2020, Lansing School District, before the season started, shut things down for Sexton, Eastern, and Everett, which, I mean, I still can't believe they did that when every other team around them got to play football. Talk about, I mean, you've already been talking about adversity, but I mean, talk about a whole year of adversity and frustration. I'm sure I can't even imagine what the fall of 2020 was like for you guys. Do you mind kind of talking about that a little bit? What that experience was like? I mean, I don't want to drudge up, negative memories here, but I think it's, something that's important to share if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, for one, man, you talk about feeling awful for seniors.
Yeah, dude.
Like it was so fucked up because we got the news the Friday prior to camp starting. So always before that Friday before we throw like a team gathering. So we've got 50 guys at the field. We just got done cleaning our press box, our concession rooms, coaches barbecuing. We're all eating when we get the news. So you talk about, kids crying, kids being hurt, distraught. I mean, it was fucking tough. And then trying to keep the guys along. And you guys know, like inner city, minority-based school where I'm at, a lot of kids' incentives to do well in class is based upon sports. So, so for us, the hardest thing was to keep kids engaged in the classroom. Because we don't get to see them at all now. Because we don't got practice, we don't got games, we don't have anything to hold them accountable.
You guys were online school the entire year, if I remember right.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So we're not seeing them at all. So it was just tough on our kids. Grades, especially our kids struggle really bad in the classroom. And now we're seeing the effect that we're back. Especially like on our football players this year, reteaching some of the things because they hadn't played football in 2 years. Some of our 10th graders, played varsity football for me this year. Their last time playing was in 8th grade. So you making a jump from middle school sports to playing against 18-year-old men is a huge difference. So,
absolutely.
So explaining to the guys, like, we finished the year 4-4 and a forfeit. We explained it to the guys, our young guys, is like, guys, you guys got to understand, you guys last time playing football, some of you guys in the 8th grade, some of you, our freshman quarterback who started our last 4 games for us, he was last time play was in the 7th grade. Now he's a freshman starting varsity quarterback.
That's crazy.
So I think, we're starting to get over those effects now, but you definitely seen it in the classroom. You've seen it in just the maturity aspect, like now socially, how they're reacting to each other in the school and not seeing their friends. The beginning of our school year was a mess. Nobody wanted to go to class because And, you want to say like, man, y'all got to do what you got to do. But at the same time, these kids haven't socialized in forever. They've had no team thing, no camaraderie aspect, because a lot of them didn't get to do that thing. So it was rough. It was rough, but I think we're finally now starting to see it turn back around.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought it up too, because I got to tell you again, I was pretty impressed, man, that you guys won with the adversity you faced. And talk about for you personally, man. I know you're not going to bring it up, but to go from 2019 being made the interim head coach right before the season starts, and then 2020, you guys get the horrible news that the season's canceled, and then you still turn around and manage a year later to win 4 games. I mean, that's awesome, man. I mean, I'm sure that's got to be a testament to the kids you're working with, your staff, and what you guys are doing over at Everett. To have guys like you just said who hadn't played football since middle school and are turning around and having to play varsity and still win 4 games. That's pretty awesome, man.
Appreciate it, man. Yes, we got some good kids, man. We got some really good kids.
Absolutely. And I continuing off of, obviously Eastern Sexton as well didn't have a season. And I know you're always a big advocate for Lansing football. With all 3 of them being canceled, do you think with all 3 of those schools being canceled, do you think it kind of puts maybe a negative on mid-Michigan football as a whole? I mean, I think for a long time now that the greater Lansing area has been overlooked in terms of high school football. I feel like the west side and the east side, and there are a lot of great teams on the west side and the east side, but I think mid-Michigan seems to get overlooked a lot. And there's always a lot of talent that comes out of the Lansing public schools. Do you think this just kind of puts us back even further in terms of this area being overlooked and underappreciated for football and high school around here?
Yeah, I mean, and I absolutely agree about, Greater Lansing being overlooked. And that's in everything with recruiting. You think some awards, some of the all-state nominations, some of those, a few different things. What I try to make a conscious effort to do is make sure we're greatly, because, you get a lot of negative spotlight for some of the things you mentioned, some of the issues we've had, within our schools and things like that. So I as well as my staff, we always try to make sure that we're shedding a positive outlook on some of the good things that are happening. We're doing our job to recruit our kids, to make our kids recruitable, to make sure they're doing the right things in the classroom. So I think some of that's on us. Some of it's us part we can't control because it's the optics of being, Greater Lansing area and what it's been. We've been known as a basketball area for a while. Yep. But I think the other part is on us to make sure that we're demanding, the respect that we deserve. And we're going out and starting to win football games. We're starting to get guys into school and doing our part. So I think it's a little bit of both.
Absolutely. Kory or Brett, do you guys want to chime in on anything? Otherwise, I was going to move on.
No, I think we've talked about it. I mean, Jaleel's killing it. He's got the kids accountable. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Jaleel, I'm a fan, always been a fan, will be a fan. So you got me sold. I'd come play for you.
Appreciate you.
If I wasn't 30 and washed up. So
God damn, that 3-0, baby, hitting you hard over there.
I got a mustache now.
Well, all right. Then we'll transition here into the next part because I do want to kind of get into Ferris State. Kory, Brett, and I want to talk with you about some Ferris State stuff. But before we get to Ferris State, the last thing I want to kind of touch on here that kind of transitions us between talking about high school and college here with you. You've been around some pretty awesome coaches. You already mentioned Mike Smith, and we talked about Tony Anise. You briefly brought up Marcel Carruthers, man. Carruthers coached at Everett and has been a huge mentor and leader and advocate for youth and sports in the Lansing area for a long time. Marcel Carruthers, if you don't know who he is at this point, then either you're not from here or you're not paying attention because that guy's been doing a lot of great things for a while now. So for you to be around Marcel Carruthers and Tony Anise and Mike Smith, all guys who have done great things in different areas in the state of Michigan at different levels for football and education. Is there anything that you specifically take away from all 3 of them or any one of those guys individually that you're using right now as a coach or that you impart on, some of your players?
Yeah. I mean, it's like a big pot of gumbo. All the coaches, you're just taking this and taking that. For Carruthers, I told you about like the bus analogy. The one thing Carruthers was a stickler on for me as well as my class in high school was that everything matters. And how simple that may sound, but the way you do what you do matters. And that's one of the big things I try and instill in my team as well as my coaches. The way we dress on the sideline matters. The way our uniform looks matters. The way we get off the bus, just making sure you're doing the right thing all the time, because it matters. And a lot of our kids don't understand that it matters. They don't understand why. So it's my job to help teach them and understand why those things matter. So that's one of the big things I took from Carruthers and I learned. Just a funny, real quick story about Carruthers and everything matter. My senior year, mind you, I'm already committed to Cincinnati. I think I'm hot shit. Everything's going well. We opened up the season with Waverly, and Carruthers had a rule that everyone had to wear black cleats. All right, it's a team rule. Black cleats were the easiest to get, easiest, so it was just a thing. We all had to wear black cleats. Me and a couple teammates thought it was a cool idea. We're wearing all white, so we get white cleats and we bring them into the locker room and wear our black cleats for warm-ups.
No.
So going out to the field, right when we go in, right before the game time starts, we hurry up, swap out our shoes, head out, to go get ready for the game. So we got 4 or 5 of us in white cleats. The rest of the team's in black. And we're playing a Waverly team. We're supposed to be really good. I think we're picked to win the conference that year. We did win the conference, but we were picked to win it. We're supposed to blow them out. Whatever. And we're down 10-7 at halftime or something like that. And when we get into that locker room, the number one thing was those fucking white cleats. And it came down to, not being a fucking individual because everything matters. It matters that you guys are uniformed. It matters that you guys are a team. It matters that you guys look the same. And, it's his thing with the football gods is, it was a reason why we were down 10-7, to start that, down at halftime. We ended up winning the game, of course, but yeah, man, it was that's just a funny story that I always think about when I think about his everything matters speech. So,
I love that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely love that.
Did you put the black cleats on for the second half then?
I definitely did. Definitely did.
I'm sure all 4 or 5 of you were like, yeah, we better put our cleats back. Black.
I don't think he probably just didn't say change your cleats. There's probably some other words in there that forced the hand.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm sure he carried it out and made it a whole thing and worked up to calling all of you guys out, I'm sure.
Yep. So it was definitely a learning experience. But, at the time, you look at it, how I just said our kids don't understand. At the time, we're looking at like, coach, we wear all white. We want to wear all white. Like, that looks sweet. That look cool. But to them, the more important thing was us being a team and being uniform. So that's something from Carruthers that really sticks with me. Mike Smith, the one thing I really, really enjoyed about Mike Smith was just his lively, demeanor. Like, Mike was sick, the entire year that no one knew. And every day it's a smile, it's a hug, it's a, just the way through his stressful situations, through things not going the right way. One of the biggest things I take from him and his style was always try and find a way to smile, always crack a joke. Like we'd be losing a game, we'd lose a game pretty bad that year. And he'd call me after the game, and say, how about that, something funny or something about a joke. So just one thing I always learned from him was just always remember to understand that this is a game. Yes, we take it serious. We love it. We're passionate about it. But at the end of the day, it's a game. So don't stress yourself out. Don't beat yourself up about it. And then one thing from Anise, one of the biggest things from Anise is we talk about adversity. And Anise is like the bounce back king for kids who, second chance, something happened, you messed up. And, and Anise will tell you, I don't believe in giving up kids. I don't believe in giving up on kids, and yes, you'll have kids who make mistakes, who do horrible things, who was in a wrong situation at the wrong time. And one thing Anish taught me, and this isn't something he taught me directly, it was indirectly while watching him coach others, was that, there's always everyone deserves another chance, you always got to be willing to at least try, and things might not work out, but he pulled the trigger and helped out a lot of people that a lot of people wouldn't have. And he's successful because of it. And a lot of the kids who's had trouble with other programs come there and, they're perfectly fine and they end up doing well. And it's really because of him believing in them, and, making sure that, they have a path and are able to succeed. And then one guy I mentioned a little bit earlier, Ryan English, there's nobody I've ever met with more DB, mechanically sound, fundamentally sound things than I've ever learned in 1 year of being coached from Ryan English. So I still use drills and terminology to this day that I learned from him. So that's pretty much, the 4 major things I've learned from those coaches.
That's awesome, man, that you've been around some pretty incredible coaches. And I'm going to add a little anecdote here. I got to go see Tony Annese. You might have been there, Jaleel. I don't remember if Kory, if you were or not. Tony Annese was one of the keynote speakers at the MHS FCA Coaches Clinic at the Lansing Center it might have been 2020, because I think the Coaches Clinic was right before COVID hit. Yep,
it was. I was there, yep.
Yeah, and he gave I've gone to that since I started coaching. I've gone to that clinic now. I mean, last year was on Zoom, so I still went last year, even over Zoom. I've gone to it, 5 years, every year I've coached. He gave probably the most memorable speech I have heard of the 5 years I've gone to that clinic. And I pretty much always watch the keynote speakers because they're high profile coaches. I watched Mark D'Antonio talk. I watched James Franklin. I watched Kirk Ferentz. A lot of high profile coaches speak at that clinic. I'm super excited. Mel Tucker and Nick Saban supposedly are going to be speaking this year. So they always find ways to pull in big coaches, but Annese has given the most memorable speech. And it's funny you bring up his willingness to give guys second chances, because his entire speech was not about X's and O's. Most of those coaches kind of go into, program culture and X's and O's and what they do to be successful. Annese talked about loving guys. That was like most of his speech was he thinks it's more important to love your players, show them true love than anything else. And that has just stuck with me. And I haven't forgotten it. And I try to remember that as I'm a high school coach. I'm not a college coach, but I think that's important at every level. I think, that really burned into my memory, that concept. And then he really talked about what we got to do to save the game of football. I just loved his focus of his speech about loving young men, about what we got to do to save the game of football, because it's, in terms of numbers nationally, it's dying. And, that really made an impression on me. And he's a guy that after listening, I'm like, man, I'd love to go play for that guy. He sounds incredible. So I can't imagine.
That's how I was with Coach Rietma at Northwood when he took over. It was one of those things where you showed up every day and were playing for somebody who respected you as a man and as an athlete. And Vince might be a little bit different. I played for multiple college coaches, and it just always felt like it was a business. I mean, you'd hear guys say it's a business. But when Rietma came in and it was like, this guy's actually here, like looking out for me, it was like, I'll do anything. You tell me what you need me to do, because I'm going to do it. So that's really awesome.
Yeah. Rietma's kind of a legend in the GLIAC as well, man. I mean, you and I have talked about it before. Rietma had quite a run at Northwood before Grand Valley took over.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, he won a few GLIAC championships. Well, speaking of the GLIAC, Jaleel, really appreciate you sharing a lot of the personal stories, but we would also like to get into Ferris State right now. Quite an impressive season. Eventually climbed their way. This 2021 team has climbed its way up to number 1 in the national rankings, and they are currently in the national championship game. Their second time under Annese, last time being in 2018. They will be playing Valdosta State, who is the team they lost to 49-47. after a failed 2-point conversion to tie the game. Crazy game. I remember watching that one live in 2018. So some people are calling this, they're penning it a revenge game, a rematch of that 2019 national title. Brett, Kory, and I have some thoughts on it, but Jaleel, if you want to go first, I know following you on social media, I see you post pictures. I know you're following Ferris State's season. What are your initial thoughts going into this national championship game with Ferris State?
Yeah, man. For one, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I think it's really, really dope. We've kind of taken over as the kings of the GLIAC for the past 8 years, but
absolutely,
we haven't been able to do what Grand Valley was able to do, and that's bring home national titles. So I think this is the year that we get it done. In that 2019 season, their defense was okay. But they gave up a lot of points that season. I think this year their defense naturally, their secondary is a lot better, shored up. Their quarterback, the guy Jared Bernhardt, who got from Maryland lacrosse team.
Crazy story there,
dude. He's amazing to watch. It's like unbelievable.
Makes you wonder what would happen if he played football in college,
right?
Yeah. Earlier in college,
right? Yeah, I mean, just a super athlete. And then, I mean, what's amazing this year is he's missed like 3 or 4 games, and their offense hasn't missed a beat. Their backup quarterback, Malik Mitchell, set Ferris's record for the most passing yards ever in a game from a quarterback.
He's a sophomore.
Yeah, sophomore.
Northwood.
And he played at Kent State, before he came over to Ferris. So it's like they're able to win in so many different ways, which makes them so hard to beat. When Bernhardt's in there, he had 5 rushing touchdowns last week. When Malik's in there, he throws for 5 passing touchdowns. They got Evan Cummings, who comes in, and he's more of like their power runner who they can use in the red zone and throw the ball a little bit downfield. So I think their team is shaped up really, really well. I think their defense this year is a little bit better. I haven't watched much of Valdosta, but I know they're a good team with championship experience, and you can't teach experience. So I think it'll be a good game, but I think Ferris will bring it home, and I think we'll win by 14. I think we'll win by 14 points, and think it'll be somewhere in like the 34-20 range.
So Ferris State is like the 05 Atlanta Falcons with Mike Vick and Madden. They just need to spread it 5 wide and just let Barnhart run around like a gerbil. It's just unbelievable. Like the dude, half the time, if he ran the ball, he wasn't even touched. It wasn't even close.
Kory. So Kory was at my house this weekend, and we watched this almost the entire game. I mean, the second half, it just became a blowout. I mean, we watched the entire first half. I watched them last week too when they played Northwest Missouri State. And for anyone listening, Northwest Missouri State is a powerhouse in Division II. Yeah. They're playing three powerhouse programs in the playoffs: Grand Valley, Northwest Missouri State, and now Valdosta State, who I think combined have won like almost 15 national titles between those 3 programs. And they made Grand Valley and Northwest Missouri State look silly.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, man, Malik Mitchell throws all over one team one week, and then they turn around and they have Barnhart, who is running all over. I'll be curious to see. I know Kory and I talked about it. I'd be curious, Jaleel, what you think. I wonder if they'll try 2 quarterbacks. Yeah, do you play them both against Valdosta? Do you go with both? Do you go with one? I'd be curious to see what Mitchell Anise ends up doing.
Yeah. We had a similar situation my senior year where we had Reggie Bell, who was actually in my recruiting class at Eastern Michigan.
That's right.
We came at EMU together. He transferred over to Ferris, and we had Travis Russell. And Reggie was more of our runner, and Travis was our thrower. And, they were going back and forth. And Anise is known for, sticking with the hot hand. So I think if Jared comes in the first half and he's doing really, really well, they're going to stick with him. And if things are going a little rough, then they'll be able to switch back and forth. But, Anise is one of those guys who he'll figure out a way to get points on the board. That's never been an issue. Is scoring points. So just being able to get stops this year. Shepherd was the number 1 scoring offense in Division II.
Yeah, I saw that. They brought that up on the TV. That's crazy.
Yep, they were number 1 scoring offense. So it was really boosting my confidence a little bit to know that we were able to, hold them down for the most part. So I think we'll be all right.
And Ferris had some turnovers. That was the only reason Shepherd they had a fumble and Ferris did. And then Shepherd
in the first half. Yeah, it was a 1-score game. I mean, Ferris, I thought was about to take it away, and they turned the ball over on their own side of the field.
I think they had 2 back-to-back fumbles, like back-to-back possessions, or it was like fumble, touchdown, fumble. But yeah.
Yep.
Well, and I mentioned this to Kory, and I think Brett, I don't remember if I mentioned this in the podcast that we did when we previewed this game, but one thing that's impressed me about Ferris State, and again, obviously I coach football, so I haven't been able to watch Ferris until the last couple weeks here, but what's impressed me about the couple games I have watched is their response. We've talked about adversity the last, however many half an hour, however many minutes here with Jaleel, but this Ferris State team responds super well to adversity. They had, I think, like 70 something yards of penalties against Shepherd. They had a turnover. I mean, even with their mistakes, it's like every time they make a mistake or the opponent, turns around and responds, they respond. And I noticed that with Northwest Missouri State. It's like you feel like as their opponent, like you got them. And then all of a sudden they come out with some huge explosive play on offense, or they come up with a stop on defense or a special teams play. I mean, it just seems like a testament to that team and Anise that they don't care what comes their way. They're just going to keep playing.
Yeah. Anise I went up this year for 2 games. I was at the Saginaw game. And they won in overtime. It's like 40, 45, 42, whatever.
Yeah, that was a close game for him.
And Ferris had like 7 turnovers that game. Saginaw had like 5 or 6. And, they're just throwing picks back and forth to each other, fumbling back and forth to each other. And, same type of thing. I'm standing with Jason Vanderlaan, 2-time Harlan Hill winner. And I'm standing with Jason and Kory Ringer, who's on my staff right now, who also played at Ferris. And we're just like, sitting talking to each other, like, Ferris is going to be the one to finish, though, like, because that's just the way, in East-led teams are. Like, they just, they're going to finish games, they're going to play hard, and they're going to find a way. So it's just amazing. It's amazing to see it happen over and over again.
It's funny you bring up that game because and I know Brett isn't huge on bringing up statistics, but I'm a big stats guy, and if you go through Ferris's schedule this year, that Saginaw Valley game was their worst defensive effort. Other than that game, they had not allowed a team to score 30 points on them. Valdosta State gave up 61 to West Florida. They also have given up more than 30 points 3 other times, 2 of them coming in the playoffs. So as high scoring and powerful as Ferris State's offense is, I really, after seeing what they did defensively last week, I'm wondering if their defense wins this game.
Yeah. I mean, I think their defense is going to be the reason why for sure the game, why they win. Yeah, it's going to be the reason they win. I think offensively, I think you can book them scoring 30. I think that's just
at least I would think.
Yeah, that's
Anise is going to put up 100 and just run with
it. They're gonna score 30 or 40 no matter what. But their secondary has been good on cashing in interceptions this year. Forcing fumble, special teams play has been tough. So I think their defense, man, led by a couple guys that were there when I was there. Liam Daly's their starting Mike, Centel Williams, their starting free safety. He had an interception last week. So I think their defense is going to be, like you said, the reason that they pull it out.
That's crazy to think about, yeah, because of COVID. Probably a lot of those guys got an extra year of eligibility.
Yeah.
So some of those could probably got some 6-year seniors, don't they?
Yep. Couple of them.
That's crazy. Yeah, I'm looking up
old men.
You're seeing that a lot right now in college football, man. 6-year seniors.
Yeah.
Maybe you might even get 7th because that COVID year is a freebie year. But you bring up interceptions, man. Ferris State has had 18 interceptions on the year. 18. They've only played 13 games. That's crazy. So they're at least going to pick a game, at least 1 interception a game. Hell of a team. Team.
Shout out Coach Hines.
And I mentioned this to Brett and Kory when we previewed the last week's game. This and we just brought up a moment ago. Obviously, Ferris State went to the national title and lost to Valdosta in 2018. This Ferris State team is actually averaging a full touchdown more per game than that team. Ferris State in 2018 only averaged 39 points per game. This Ferris State team's averaging 46 points per game. That's quite an offense they have. I mean, like you said, Jaleel, I mean, their lowest point total all year was against Grand Valley and Wayne State. They scored 35 in those games. I mean, to me, they score no less than 5 touchdowns. I mean, they're going to score at least 5 or 6 touchdowns. Unless Valdosta has some secret defensively that no one knows about, I think. I mean, and this is something I wanted to bring up to you too, Jaleel and Kory. I mean, you and I talked about this weekend. One thing that really surprises us watching Ferris State offensively is they really don't do anything crazy from an X's and O's standpoint. I think Anis relies extensively on his athletes, which is something that I think you're seeing more and more now in college football with explosive offenses and explosive plays being emphasized. Just spreading the field out. And if the passing game isn't there, the quarterback takes off. I mean, you saw it with Bernhardt, and it helps that they have an enormous offensive line. What did they average, like 305 pounds?
It was 6'5", 305 average.
I mean, you can do anything you want in the running game when you have a defense, an offensive line like that, at the Division II level. I mean,
yeah,
that's D1, that's Big Ten. Like, you know, that's incredible.
yeah, and you know. Anis is one of those guys blocking and tackling. Like you said, it's not like most of the time. It's funny, you know, practicing against Anis all the time. It's like, you know what they're about to run, you know what's coming, blocking and tackling. Like, are they going to block better or are you going to tackle better? That's what it's going to come down to most games playing against Ferris State. Yeah. And they just believe that they're going to execute better and block better. And that's not just in the trenches, which their offensive line is doing great on the perimeter. They run a lot of, you know, bubble screens and, you know, jet sweeps. You'll see often in their offense, and you'll see their running backs out blocking. You'll see their receivers out stalk blocking their asses off. So it's something that's, you know, a priority at Ferris State is you have to be able to block, and on defensively you have to be able to tackle. So those are 2 big points of emphasis that Anis incorporates every single day.
Yeah, the only thing that I ever noticed that they do unusual in terms of an X's and O's is defensively always sticks out to me a little bit more, where a lot of times they'll put one linebacker in the box. I know, Jaleel, you talked with us about it a lot when we coached together. I always was just enamored with his defense that they run at Ferris State. And part of it is a defense that you can't really run if you don't have the guys to do it. I mean, you
need a rangy Mike as well.
Yeah, you got to have a stud Mike linebacker to run a 5'1", 6'1", you know, like they do, and cover 0, a lot of cover 0, a lot of cover 1. Just hey, we're gonna bring 5, 6, 7 guys. Stop us. Make a play in space. If you can't, you're done. I mean,
their defensive philosophy, you know, is stop the run. Got a lot of 2-gappers up there and those D tackles playing in those 2 eyes, sitting there clogging up the A's, and they're, I mean, it's just like you said, we're coming hard. You know, their backers are always reading in-man on line of scrimmage. They're ready to stop the run at all costs. And in their secondary, you know, they just believe our athletes are better. So we're able to cover in man-to-man. And, you know, usually when you get up big, like our offense can score, you get up 14-0, 21-0, you make the other team one-dimensional. Now you can really, you know, throw in some different zone coverages and, you know, do a little trickeration and disguise and do different things. So it's a fun defense to play in. I was able to play linebacker in it my second year there, which was I played like, you know, a star role, like strong safety, where I was able to blitz off the edge, where I was able to cover the slot, where I was able to, you know, do a whole bunch of stuff. So it was cool being able to, you know, get a sack and TFLs and tackles and interceptions. I had, you know, basically every statistic playing linebacker. So a lot of fun to play in that defense.
A defense that I wish I could run at the high school level, but unfortunately, if you don't have you don't have the studs, man, it's, you know, it's tough. I mean, I love watching their defense. I think it's phenomenal. It's a defense that I would love to take some concepts from, but again, it's more of a Jimmy's and Joe's, not X's and O's, as the old saying, you know, kind of goes in high school. It's, you know, you got what you got, so you got to work with it.
Yeah, hey, James and Joe's these days, Vince, be careful.
That's right. As a public school teacher, I got to be careful. Sorry, James and Joe's. My bad.
Or James and Joe's at Grand Ledge High School too. So.
Well, all right. Do we have anything else we want to add here on? How about? We'll finish with this. If you guys don't have anything else to add on Ferris State, how about picks? I think it's going to be unanimous. Jaleel, you want to kick us off? Who you got for the national title game?
Ferris State by 14. Bring home the banner. I'll be back in Big Rapids for the celebration.
Oh, baby. I love it. Kory?
Ferris State, I agree. They're going to rack it up on them. I think Valdosta probably still scores around 30, but I think Ferris might drop 50 piece. So
they've done it twice in the playoffs.
And they're practicing in the warm this week. It's supposed to be like 60 in Grand Rapids on Thursday. And then they're going down to Texas, so they won't even be that much different. We'll be good.
Brett?
I'm a little bummed that the game's at 9:00 on Saturday night. I was hoping to be in the middle of the afternoon.
Is it that late?
Yeah, it's 9:00.
Oh, man.
Central time zone, but
I didn't know it was that late. Damn, that sucks.
Yeah.
I'm still going to watch it. I got to watch that one.
I'm still going with the Bulldogs, though. I think it's going to be really high scoring, kind of like how you guys think as well. But I don't think it's going to be as big of a blowout as people expect. I'm thinking it's going to be more like 45-38, 45-44, somewhere around there. It's going to be a one-score game.
The 2018 game was 49-47. That was a high-scoring game that year. I think it's going to be a close game in the first half, but I just think this Ferris State team it's their year. Jaleel mentioned earlier, I think it's their year. I think this is kind of a revenge tour, as some people have penned this, with it being the same team they lost to by a 2-point conversion in 2018 in Valdosta State. I think they've knocked out 2 powerhouse D2 teams already in Grand Valley and Northwest Missouri State. Valdosta is just number 3 on the list. I think Ferris State wins this by at least 2 scores. I don't think it's a close game. I'll be surprised if they only win by a touchdown or less. I really think that Anise is going to get the guys going. They're going to be ready to bring home their first Division II national championship to Big Rapids, Michigan. I'm excited. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it.
Amen.
Well, all right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add here on Ferris State? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up here.
I'm good.
All right, Jaleel, Mr. Jaleel Canty, varsity head coach at Lansing Everett, Ferris State alum. Appreciate you coming on here, man. Before we wrap things up, do you have anything you'd like to share, plug, anything anyone listening would want to hear from you?
Yeah. Well, first, appreciate y'all for having me.
Absolutely.
I think it's dope that you guys are using this platform to reach out to other coaches and do a lot of different things in Michigan. I watched one of you guys' snippet videos. Haven't had a chance to log in, throw in the AirPods. I might do it during class tomorrow, But definitely appreciate you having me on. And then, like I like to end everything. I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter. What I tweet every day is spread love.
Yep.
So just continuing to push that message to spread love out here. It's a lot of bad that's been going on, that's been publicized, that's been focused on. But I think, similar to what we talked about, Coach Anise, focusing on the love aspect, spreading love, using our gifts to give to others, and continue to be the light. I think that's the way the world's going to keep going, and things are going to get better.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, for sure. And one last thing, Everett football 2022. What we thinking?
Everett football 2022 playoffs, baby. We got to make the playoffs, man. We got our our schedule finalized. I don't know why our schedule always, our gauntlet games are always right back to back. But but we're gonna I think we got a chance of making the playoffs. That's our number one objective, number one goal. We're still gonna be young, have a lot of sophomores and juniors, which is a good thing. So getting started now. We've been doing a little bit of stuff in the weight room, and in January we're gonna pick it up a notch, and then in April we'll pick it up another notch, and and playoffs is the goal.
Love it. I'm going to have to be, I'll be game playing against you here very soon before we know it.
Yeah,
it's all love though, man. It's all love. Yes, absolutely. Well, all right. Jaleel, thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on and taking some time to talk to us here on a Tuesday night when we all got to work. But I'm sure you could agree we're always all willing here to talk about football.
Yes, sir.
One reason that we're all together here tonight. Well, all right. This is episode 4, Great Lakes State Football. Kory, Vince, Brett, guest Jaleel Canty. Go Green.
Blue.